Hey, what kind of vegetable is only kind of awesome? A radish. I get it. It's only a little rad. Today we're going to learn about radishes while we learn all the stages of a plant's life. So most of you have started seeds before. We talked about that in a previous video. And we put the seeds in a situation where they will hopefully start growing or germinate. In order to germinate these radish seeds, we provided the right amount of moisture, the temperature that it needed to germinate, and oxygen in the soil, and then some light. And so now we have what we call a vegetative plant. We refer to the leaves and this part as vegetative. So this plant has gone through the seed stage and germination and now is in the growth stage. A radish, for example, stays in the growth stage for quite some time. But you can see as it continues to grow and flourish, it begins to develop a deposit in the root mass that we use as a food. And I've been waiting for you guys to pull this so that you can see this type of radish. This type of radish is actually ready to eat. The variety I planted, well, I can't remember the name right now, is meant to be a small candy type radish. So if I got tired of talking to you on this video, I could just snap off the top and the bottom, maybe wash it off, and then eat it. And that's the part us humans use for food. Now, there are also some other things you can do with radish tops, but that's a different story for a different day. This plant is still in the growth stage, and we consume plants in all different stages of their life, but many plants we consume while they're in the growth stage. Now, if we left that radish alone and didn't eat it in our salad, eventually we'd end up with something like this. Now, I don't know if you can see on camera, but the radish part is actually getting smaller. And what happened is as the vegetative growth continued, it had to use some of these nutrients. The step after growth is actually plant reproduction. And plants who reproduce sexually do that by producing flowers. And in those flowers, we have pollen and all the reproductive structures for that plant to produce a seed. Now, plants are really funny because sometimes the amount of water you give them triggers them to go into a reproductive stage. Sometimes it's sun, sometimes it's simply time. If it's water, for example, you might miss a day of watering and the plant goes, I think we're going to die, we have to hurry and reproduce. The plant will grow up and then flower. Some years in my garden, I've struggled with my tomatoes not making flowers. Usually, if I just take off a couple days of watering them and let the plant dry out, that will trigger that biological response in the plant. So this radish is in what we would call the reproductive stage because it's made flowers. Now, if we continue to let that reproductive stage go and go and go, we end up with a situation where the radish part that we would eat as humans, you can't see it very well, but it's completely gone because the plant has used all of that nutrient storage to help the plant reproduce. So it has then, spread pollen all over and fertilized some of these flowers. If I left this plant in the container, it would actually produce seeds and then begin to reseed itself. So in summary, that kind of helps us understand what a plant does. And then we just have to look plant by plant to figure out at what stage do we consume it. The plant grows from a seed, it germinates, it grows, it reproduces in some way, which is usually a flowering. Then it spreads those seeds and the vegetation part dies. Now, every plant does that in a different amount of time. And this is where we're introduced to different plant life cycles. An annual is a plant that does all of this in one season. Radishes are annuals. So, this all happened in about a month of time because radishes grow pretty quickly. Probably more like 2 months, actually. Biennials are plants who do this entire life cycle in 2 seasons. Now, I got to learn about this one year because I was lazy and I missed some carrots in my garden. And so we never dug them up in the fall. And the next year, the plant actually grew into this beautiful flowering plant because it was living off all the nutrients that were in the carrot because I didn't eat the carrot. We typically don't see that part of a carrot's development because at the end of one season, we pull the carrots up, consume the orange or the nutrient storage part, and get rid of the greens. But a carrot is a good example of a biennial. And then finally we have perennials. Perennials are plants that persist through many seasons. Now it's highly dependent on the plant, but lots of times they actually go through part of that life cycle every season, but they don't have to be reseeded to come back the next year. Depending on the temperature of your region, they will actually keep the root base alive under the soil, and when the growing conditions become good again, like when the snow melts and the soil temperature warms up, then that plant will grow again. When we're working on landscaping, you'll notice you can go to Home Depot and maybe spend $2 on the annual version of a plant or $5 on the perennial version. And that's because an annual you would have to replant every year, while a perennial you maybe only have to replant every 5 to 7 years, or it may last most of your lifetime. So we use plants in a variety of ways in our society for both food and beautification, and knowing whether you're purchasing an annual, a biennial, or a perennial is a very important part of that. I hope you have a great day. Bye.